Hello and good morning, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are today, and welcome to the Cigna Looker Day with MemSQL. We're going to get started with the content in just a minute, but I'm here just as your moderator. My name is Shayna. I'm on the Looker team, and I'm going to just run over some housekeeping rules with you for today. So on your screen, you're going to see a bunch of different windows. And the great thing about this portal is that everything is customizable, meaning you can minimize them, maximize them, move them around the screen, and really customize it so you're seeing what you want to see. If you accidentally minimize or close a window for any reason, no worries. You just got to click on the toolbar menu on the bottom of your screen and you can bring it back up. The presentation today is being recorded and will be sent out after it's over. For each of our sessions today, we will have a Q&A briefly within the session, but at the end of the entire program today, we will have 15 minutes of Q&A at the end. So please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen at any time throughout the presentation, and we will address it whenever it is most appropriate. One other thing, you'll see a chat window on your screen, so you can use this to chat with the other attendees today through the group chat functionality. To enable that, all you have to do is click on the group chat icon to open up the window. And with that, we are ready for a fantastic day of content with you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to your moderator for the day, Ethel Anderson. She is a strategic account executive on the Looker team. And I'll pass it over to Ethel. Thanks, everybody. You can see on your screens right now an overview of the agenda. So first off, we're going to be kicking things off with an industry perspective of the data transformation challenge that's happening right now with Harry Fox, who has just a fantastic and really exciting tenure in the industry that he's going to share with all of you. We'll then move back to Ethel to talk about data on demand and how Cigna is currently utilizing Looker and how you could be even more impactful using it. We'll then have a session from one of our partners, MemSQL, about the database for dashboard acceleration. And we will close out the day with an exclusive look just for all of you at Cigna at the Looker product roadmap, which is really exciting. There's some new features that are coming down the pipeline that will give you some insight into today. But without further ado, I am happy and very excited to introduce Harry D. Fox. He is the former EVP and CIO at CareFirst with Blue Cross Blue Shield and just has a ton of exciting industry experience. So Harry, you could take it away.
Good. Well, good morning, everyone. We will dive in. And I am clicking through the slides. There we go. So there's really three main things we're going to talk about today. The data transformation challenge is really at the core of this discussion, but we'll talk about data modernization and creating a data-driven culture. And you've got your Q&A panel, so if questions come up throughout this, please pop them in the box, and we'll try and get to your questions at the end. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes. My background is, well, a very long time at this point in healthcare informatics and healthcare technology, going back to the early 90s, with my last big role as CIO of CareFirst Blue Cross Blue Shield for 7 years. But I've worked at Kaiser Permanente, I've worked at PwC, I've worked at a company that's now Aetna, it was formerly Coventry, all in the healthcare domain. And a lot of that work had to do with data warehousing, data analytics, and I ran them in two of those organizations. So we'll dive right in. This slide might look familiar to some of you. It's from a March 2018 industry presentation when Cigna announced the acquisition of Express Scripts. And it talks about all of the lines of business that will be getting combined through that merger. But for today's call, I want you to think about these lines of business as data. Data flowing from each business point to point, supported by hundreds of systems for every business. And then for each system, often thousands of data flows in and out. So to create the value that we're trying to create for the business, all that data needs to be integrated in a meaningful way so the business can learn, decide, and act. Both legacy companies invested significantly in traditional data warehousing and analytics. And this picture is not representative of Cigna specifically, but is kind of an industry healthcare view of a data warehouse. And if you've been in this space for a while, this view should look pretty familiar. It's complex, it's expensive. There's always newer and changing requirements you're trying to keep up with. Unlike a static application, which functions kind of more in a frozen way, a data warehouse is really a living, breathing thing. The business is always pushing you to get to market quicker with analytics so they can make decisions. And you're always supporting the old while you're developing the new. And at the same time, as a company, you continue to invest in big data and AI and cloud, and that whole portfolio is growing for you. So we live in two worlds. We live in the world of legacy data warehouses. They're built over many years, were expensive to build. They often feed the company's reporting, analytics, and financial systems, and they are complex. And then we live in the world of big data with its promise of speed to market, cloud-based delivery, leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning at a reduced cost and supporting these very large volumes of data. But here's the challenge. You've got to keep up that legacy data warehouse for likely many years while you build the future state. And that has a cost. There's the cost of the legacy data warehouse, and there's a cost of big data and all the components and databases and platforms you're going to need for that new endeavor. And so you've got to do that while still meeting the demands of the business, which I wrote down here is ever-changing, unceasing. They wanted it yesterday. That's the way it always is. You've also got the challenge of your staff. You've got to take people who've worked in the legacy environment for years with legacy skills and legacy tool knowledge, and not just train them on the new tool sets, but really teach them how to think differently about big data. I mean, the worst thing that could happen here is they move over in the big data space, but think like they're working in a legacy data warehouse. So there's a lot of education that's got to go on to get your team up to speed and ready to move forward into the big data world. You've also got the challenge of training your team and taking advantage of machine learning and artificial intelligence. They can provide fantastic value, but my observation is as teams are getting up to speed, they often struggle about how to harness these powerful tools, and that takes some time. And then you've got your end users. How do you empower them? How do you give them the easy-to-use tools without coding that they can take advantage of these new platforms and really add value to their business? What do mergers do? They create synergy, they create shareholder value, strength, and growth. And I'm actually taking these words from a press release about the merger. So if we click forward, how do you create value? How can you leverage the company's global data assets to be used for the purpose of enhancing revenue and growth? So there's really a couple things you can do. Focus on delivering business insights. Shift from analysis of the past to providing predictive decision-making tools. And big data really gives you the ability to make that switch. So much of what we delivered historically in a data warehouse was simply reporting on the past. But the AI and predictive tools of big data lets you be more forward-looking. I think we can also leverage the mountains of data from both extensions of our business like the web and social media that have been going on for some time, but also from new digitally enhanced formularies that, and I'm going to talk about a digitally enhanced formulary that you rolled out just this last year. to really help us understand customers, understand clinical efficacy of what we're offering digitally, and really the effectiveness of patient programs. So what we're looking at first is the formulary ecosystem, and this should be familiar to most of you. As most of you know, when you buy a health insurance product, the formulary is the drug component that says what products are approved for you to use and what products are not, and at what price point. So when you go to the pharmacy and you fill your prescription and you have a copay, that's all driven by the formulary. Or you find out your doctor's prescribed something that's not covered, that's driven by the formulary. So this picture shows you not only just the pieces, all the formulary ecosystem, but also how data flows between those entities. And if we click forward one, you'll see Express Scripts also added a digital formulary at the end of last year, which includes 15 solutions for remote monitoring and digital therapeutics. And that's another touch point for you to gather data and to be able to take that data and really analyze the effective of the formulary. So if you click through again, you should see that right panel now. One of the questions is, well, how are you leveraging all of this formulary data across the payer lifecycle? You've got data which I think you should be able to get from your newly approved digital formulary. Can you take that data in and analyze it? You've got traditional data from contracts and rebates between the PBM business and the drug manufacturers, and that's a typical place that you've analyzed before. You've got health insurance product design, and the formulary is a key component of whether a health insurance product is going to be effective and make money, as well as add value to customers. And then you've got the large employer groups and their reporting and analysis. Particularly large self-funded employers expect to drill down into the data, and they want to understand the effectiveness of the formulary design. So this is kind of a bread and butter issue in the business, but I thought it was a good example to say, if you can garner and get access to across what's often business silos and capture this data in a new way, often in a data lake, in a cloud big data solution, and begin to mine it, you're going to be able to produce more predictive analytics that can help drive the business in making future decisions about formulary. As we step through this, there's a couple of strategies you can use for success here. And as you think about modernizing, these are some tips. Hopefully some of them are no-brainers, but some of them might not be. Really, first is at an enterprise. Think about an enterprise approach to your transformation plan and roadmap, an enterprise approach to data architecture, and an enterprise approach to integrating cloud and big data. Doing this as a series of silos often makes it very challenging for the organization, particularly from the data architecture perspective. So the more you can approach this as an enterprise project, the better. Focus on analytics that are forward-looking and predictive. They've got the higher business value. And there may be things you just couldn't deliver in a legacy data warehouse environment that you can with big data. And with the overlaying of machine learning and AI on top of the data, you may be able to produce completely different forward-looking and predictive results for the business that will add significant value. The next bullet's kind of a bread and butter issue, but so often I see projects where cybersecurity was an afterthought and HIPAA was an afterthought. You've got to bake that in from the beginning to make sure that it is part of how you build this, particularly in the cloud, from day one. And from a strategic perspective, look for strategies that can be sustained over multiple budget cycles and leadership changes. Often, as IT leaders, we're not great at a cross-section of business leaders. We've got maybe one core partner, and then that one core partner moves on and in the next cycle, the project gets defunded. So the more you can build relationships across the business, engage them more fully, the goal is to really sustain these projects over time as budgets change and leadership changes. And then lastly, or next, one of my favorites, don't fall in love with the technology. I did this so many times in the early part of my career, but match the technology to the business requirements. There are projects that will be better in a data lake, but there are also projects that will be better in a traditional relational database or star schema. Don't let your love of the new technology drive these decisions. Gain early leadership buy-in and support, and then educate your end users and support them. And when you think of data modernization, there's some strategies that are likely to fail. Certainly, too much, too fast can often be a recipe for failure. You try and boil the ocean, and it's too complicated. The other places projects fail is insufficient business and leadership buy-in, either to the project or the cost or to the strategic goals. These are often dimensions that may work for a cycle of funding, but don't work for the long term, especially for large multi-year projects. Also, don't go too small. So department or cloud strategies often lack sufficient focus when they're delivered at a departmental level. They lack security, scalability, adherence to corporate standards, and they do often create security risk. My experience is so many times we've had analytics in my experience where the business comes to information systems, says, we can no longer maintain this, could you take it? Well, we usually have to rewrite it. It's in technologies we don't support, there's insufficient security or doesn't scale. So don't go too small. And then lastly here, think about technology chaos and avoid it. So there's so many tools. Big data is changing so fast. I'm always trying to keep up with the tools and the databases, but it's evolving so rapidly. But you still got to pick what you think is best in that go round in a cycle. Lock and load it for the company. Reevaluate it often, but you don't want anything goes. It creates technology chaos, and it's very hard to manage, and it also costs more. So how do you get a data-driven culture? Well, there's some fundamentals to think about. Certainly, build from the top down and bottom up. My experience is the best ideas often come from those closest to the data, but you've also got to get management to embrace and act upon that data. So you've got to do both. Treat data like a core asset. And this is often new for older management that really didn't see data at the heart of how they ran the business. There's an education component we need to often do with the business about how to leverage data properly. This next bullet is kind of mom and apple pie, but I don't want to lose it, which is focus on enterprise data architecture and governance. That's no different than what we did in the past, but it really helps. You don't want the end users being able to create different sources of truth. You want the data rolling up in such a way, and that's a data architecture issue, that no matter how people slice and dice the data, they get to answers that line up. And so you don't have different departments fighting over what's true and what's not true in the data. Also kind of a bread and butter issue, but create the right process and the right culture to make data and information important. A lot of companies are establishing new management roles, and my only caveat here, I often see them without clear lines of accountability. So you often see companies will create a chief data officer, but that role steps on different responsibilities other people have. So I think these roles are important and they should be created, but they also need to be clearly distinguished from legacy roles. And that means some legacy roles may need to lose some accountability. You want to deliver early wins. And what I mean by that is I've watched too often analytics roll out weren't sufficiently tested and there's bad data, and they erode end user trust for years. So you want to create confidence and trust as you roll out these new tools. And that means overlaying some of the things you've done for years, like extensive testing, extensive design, extensive architecture. But that ensures that you're not going to leave a bad taste in the business mouth. I said this earlier, but I'm going to repeat it. Select tools for your end users that deliver ease of use without coding. And then lastly, don't skimp on training and education. It's so important. It often gets short-circuited because of cost after everything is said and done. So next slide. So I'll leave you with this thought. This headline was from a press release that Cigna issued, and I love this phrase, establishing a blueprint to transform the healthcare system. And when I think about that, I really think data is a dimension that you will leverage to transform the healthcare system. And so make sure as the company moves forward, data plays a part in that, because it's going to be an important piece of leveraging that for your future success. So with that, thank you, and we will open it up to your questions.
Thank you, Harry. I think we will probably save the questions to the end, so I will continue on the piece of data on demand.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Harry. So leveraging Looker to deliver data on demand is our next segment, and I like to kick this piece off by providing a little bit of an evolution around phases of analytics. For those of you that are close to this, you probably know this very well, but it helps set the stage because there has been a tremendous amount of progress in the world of data and analytics. And initially speaking, this first facet, descriptive analytics, were really where the business was very focused on providing the business users with an interpretation of the historical data and what's transpired in the business over the last months or years, so that they could actually perform their own analysis and get an understanding of what the data meant. That was initially catered to really be simplistic in terms of providing end users with an understanding of that in terms of market issues affecting the business overall. But since then, there's been a lot more transformation in terms of moving to the next phase, more of a diagnostic analytic, advanced analytic type of scenario where you've got end users like myself who are very inquisitive and really want to know more about the data. They're the ones asking questions about why did X transpire? Why did this peak in demand occur? And so all that has driven technology to be more apt to actually develop that drill down and provide the data discovery and more of the correlations between data to provide the diagnostics for a business to understand more explicitly what transpired. But in all of this happening, what's also clearly been an indication of development in the space is predictive analytics has really come to that next level because of data science. And so all the data scientists looking at the myriad of statistical techniques from logistic regression to very sophisticated data mining, and really looking at analyzing current and historical facts in parallel to make predictions about future unknown events is really where we're finding a lot of companies focused today. And this next leap, which really ties into what we heard Harry start with, is that new paradigm, moving more towards prescriptive analytics and taking advantage of that underlying machine learning capability that technology is able to present to give the business the ability to use a course of action with computer program predictions to understand the next element of automation in terms of driving action from insights. So oftentimes this is done in parallel with predictive analytics to determine sort of the near-term outcomes and also using that probability-weighted projection in parallel. But it will be a great focus of the discussion today because the big data challenge is what we're all hearing is really the biggest transformation that everyone's faced with. So to do that, architecturally speaking, for those of you familiar with Looker, this will be a slide I'm sure you've seen before, but what it's meant to depict is how you actually can cope with this technically speaking. So what this is really portraying is this notion, if we look at it from the bottom up, of the proliferation of third-party workflow applications that are in existence in just about any company that you can possibly name. It's not just healthcare, but the notion being that there's various applications, each of which have their function for different departments or different constituency bases. But what this is actually showing is the concept that to form a data strategy, the centralization of data is really paramount. So whether that's a data lake or a data warehouse, what Looker does is connect via JDBC connection directly to that underlying database. And you'll hear today more about our partner MemSQL in this capacity. But the concept here being that this purple bar is meant to denote the semantic modeling layer that takes advantage of the fact that you've got a single source of truth here feeding your data platform. And with that, you get governance. And so you're able to really use that centralization layer to distinguish your logic, your KPIs, any security protocols that you want to carry out through your organization, and take advantage of the power of a data platform that has the API extensibility to really give you versatility in how you present data to different constituents across an organization or through those different stages I mentioned in terms of the evolution of analytics. So for instance, the first facet in modernizing BI and analytics, one of our customers, The Economist, was really faced with trying to understand their customers and having that 360-degree view they desired across all of their channels. They leveraged Looker to be able to do that and facilitate that to all of their end users so that they'd have that vantage point. The next level would be more of an integration approach. So Stripe is a customer of ours that understood that their Salesforce lived in Salesforce.com. They wanted to keep them there, but drive the data insights into Salesforce.com. So they used more of an embedded scenario where Looker's providing that contextual understanding of the account. So the sales reps working with the customer would understand more explicitly what they could talk to them about right there from their application. Taking that next step of really deriving action and moving towards that paradigm of prescriptive, SalesLoft is a customer that was really challenged with reducing churn across the business. And to do that, they wanted to be able to automate alerts and really drive more proactive follow-up with their customers based on what their success managers that were on the front line could garner based on that customer relationship. So if the health was showing that they had some problem areas or dissatisfaction, that they could actually start driving some campaigns or some loyalty programs or promotions to make sure the churn wouldn't occur. And they use Looker to manage that from an action perspective. The last piece, and oftentimes is not always thought of, but it's really taking that data and using it externally as well. So when we talk about custom applications, I'll give some examples of how some other healthcare organizations have started to really start leveraging data to expose to their member base or customer experiences. So this may look familiar to many of you. It's Cigna's Looker home screen. And what it's showing here is two elements that are really curated data and views that you can experience as an employee. If you've not seen it today, I definitely encourage you to look at it because Cigna's been really good about curating and offering different functional areas, different pockets of data. This first piece is more dashboards and representing some of the data that's most popular for those functional areas that want to take advantage of some of the metrics that have been worked on already within your modeling layer. But then the other is the actual views. And so if you're looking at these looks below, which is what we call them, you have the opportunity to really get into some specific metrics, again, all curated for you to be able to benefit from based on your access and how you're granted to see data within Cigna. That's all possible also through your intranet. So for those of you familiar with your Analytic Reporting Central in Cigna, the ARC for short, this is essentially a snippet of how Looker is embedded within your intranet, and you've got all these different types of data classified in folders, all organized by collection titles, and your Center of Excellence has gone through and in working with the core team that we work with at Cigna, they've provided some really detailed descriptions for those of you that might want to take advantage of, let's say, behavioral insights or want to get some specific metrics. There's a lot of data accessible there for you to be able to take advantage through the intranet already. All of that, of course, being made possible because as a data platform, Looker is really enabling the capability of using the iframes, which is how this was embedded in the intranet specifically, but also the suite of RESTful APIs that a data platform offers. So it gives you a lot of versatility with regards to personalizing, customizing, or even white labeling that experience if you wanted to use this, like I said, be it for internal or external purposes out to your member base as well. So if you take a glimpse at beyond the ARC, there's also your value management, analytics reporting area as well within Cigna. And what this is meant to showcase for you is that within all of those report areas, you have the ability, as illustrated here, recognize it's smaller on the web meeting, but you can see that there's a self-explore. As we mentioned in starting out with that evolution, that diagnostic phase of allowing end users to really slice and dice how they want to query or analyze and report on the data is how this is enabled. So this is our Explore area in Looker. It's already curated, so the intent is that as you come in as a specific employee with specific access rights to data, you'd have a menu of different options available to you to be able to delve further and maybe ask further questions to the question I posed earlier of why did X transpire in the business. This is where you can really get to the bottom of doing that due diligence and understanding the data exploration even further. So for those of you that are maybe somewhat familiar but want to get a little bit more in terms of documentation or resources in terms of Looker and what's made available to you, the Cigna Center of Excellence team has been working really closely with us. There's a lot of tools out there if you've not explored already for both technical and non-technical users. So for those of you that are analysts or developers wanting to delve in a little deeper, within your Confluence page, there's also some additional documentation if you're wanting to design a model or look into specific projects. There are a lot of resources made available to you, but of course, if there's anything else that we can help supply or provide additional guidance on, we're more than happy to do so. And so from here, what I'd like to transition into is to some of those specific case studies that I mentioned in terms of other healthcare organizations. The first is the Commonwealth Care Alliance. So they're an organization based in Massachusetts. Their biggest challenge was, much like many others, is being able to manage the data bottleneck and data chaos. And so most recently, they've had to pivot to actually do more monitoring and reaction to the COVID-19 changes, of course. But within one day, as you can see, the team built a dashboard to be able to really understand and rapidly even iterate upon how they were monitoring, planning, and reacting on COVID. So they're monitoring patients' risk factors, test results, and visit history to start identifying who is most vulnerable, and then specifically how they would proactively plan to reach out to that population base. So this was really garnered to respond to how to effectively determine, number one, high risk, who were those patients, and then what would be the best method of care to reach out to them. In some cases, it was actually home care solutions. While this is specific to COVID, the idea was that that particular event drove the entire transformation in the organization so that they would be data informed and act and resource plan in accordance to the data as opposed to just how they best felt they would be able to cater to it. HCA Healthcare, an organization out of Nashville. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the challenge that they were faced with, which is needing real-time, reliable data to answer, again, similar questions on COVID, but more around how they could actually determine where COVID was spreading and how to prepare for that. So for them, it was using Looker to launch a COVID-19 national response portal. So it's an open data platform. And their key mission was to coordinate critical logistics for thousands of hospitals nationwide so that they could really do tracking of factors from custom KPIs to the number of cases per ICU bed to help states and hospitals plan resourcing more effectively. So this was, again, with a span of different hospitals involved, all about collaboration and coordination and using Looker to help facilitate capacity planning in understanding what the actual number of cases were per ICU bed. The CMS, an organization I'm sure many of you are very familiar with, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, again, a massive data organization. And their biggest feat was that they were really trying to switch from a fee-for-service to a value-based service. The challenge that they had was, much like many of us can understand, there were data in silos and they had very outdated formats due to legacy systems. So the first step that they had to go through was bringing innovative technology to the government. So really running 80 innovation models to help set the standard for how they wanted to make that transformation. And in 2020 alone, they have 1 million medical practitioners that are, and I should say practically by this point today, are using the real-time metrics to promote value-based cases for over 70 million patients. So for them, it was really about that big data challenge and really understanding how to deal with the volume of data at the speed at which it was coming and understanding how best to cater to those different patients' cases. So this is some examples of the visuals that are related to all of those use cases. So the HCA, specifically in terms of proactive monitoring and alerting on COVID cases, you can see that they had the number of confirmed cases and deaths illustrated here as part of what they were really tracking, and then understanding the footprint of cases across the geography and across different states by all of those different states summarized. But what you see to the right here, which is very interesting and maybe hopefully relevant to all of you, would be scheduling and alerting on, in their case, it was ICU bed capacity to be able to do more effective resource planning. But this is certainly something that is manageable at a personal or broad organization level on a variation of different KPIs. So this is where the value comes in terms of being more predictive and even prescriptive in terms of deciding the actions or workflow to take into consideration based on those real-time insights. So not just about seeing the real-time insights, but actually deriving what that next level of step of activities might be to follow. This is another example of more within the realm of managing opioid fraud cases and really looking at percentage of doctors with the highest risk, total overdoses and deaths over an actual period of time that you could stipulate. And this was the geography, which in this case was more focused on Orlando, just to give you a sense of those doctors that were most impacted by that. And taking that to the next level, in this case, what was really incredibly important was taking the action. So for any of those healthcare providers, it was providing the actual links to other helpful sites to start to derive actions out of those cases based on some of the predictive expected scoring of some of those cases in high-risk areas. Another is looking at that from the standpoint of cohorts, or in this case, specific doctors at risk in specific areas within Orlando. Again, this is just to get a glimpse in terms of a zoom in, but it gives you a good sense for how you can take that next level of actions and start to derive some really specific activities based upon what are expected or have been cases in those concrete areas of interest. And the last is really taking that into interoperability of resources. So this is an example of a glimpse at Hallmark Health and seeing how they were tracking everything from emergency cases to number of hospitalizations across the events per day and how those COVID statuses were developing. Again, how those patient cases in the geography, in this case of Boston, looked, just to give a very good understanding of how to start planning around that, and taking that to the last level of monitoring vulnerability for strategic planning and understanding how to accommodate what seem to be those specific case numbers. So just to give you a sense for what the art of what's possible is, especially with working with a lot of very significant big data. And with that, I will transfer to Sarong.
All right, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. My name is Sarang Tripathi. I'm with MemSQL. I'm a solution consultant, and I work directly with the Cigna Express Scripts team as well as the Looker team on dashboard acceleration. And I'm really happy to be here today to talk to you all about dashboard acceleration and really what that means, both from a data standpoint, but also from a dashboarding tool standpoint to help you all make your downstream decisions. All right, so I'll tell you a little bit about MemSQL to start and some of the customers that we serve. I'll tell you a little bit about our partnership with Cigna Express Scripts, and then I'll get a bit deeper into what the platform does. So here at MemSQL, we really focus on three key strategic areas for our customers. The first is dashboard acceleration. Now, what does that mean? It means we've heard a lot about dashboards and data today, but what dashboard acceleration means is making those dashboards that are the most critical to your enterprise as fast as possible. And what fast really means is fast ingest of data, as well as fast querying of that data and fast delivery of that data to the people that need to see it at the right time. So the next area is predictive ML and AI. So what we specialize here at MemSQL is taking those machine learning and AI models that you have and running them inside our database, and then facilitating interaction with those models through dashboarding platforms like Looker. And then the last is legacy replacement and helping our customers move to the cloud. And we've heard a little bit about that today through Harry's presentation as well. But a lot of organizations we're seeing today are having challenges with that move from legacy systems to the cloud. And MemSQL really helps facilitate that movement. So who do we do it for? As I've mentioned, we are partnered with Cigna, but we have quite a number of customers. Half of the top 10 banks are using MemSQL specifically around fraud monitoring and risk surveillance of trading. Two of the top 3 telcos. So Verizon, for example, uses MemSQL for its entire 5G infrastructure. 160 million streaming media users from Hulu to Comcast. So whether you've cut the cable or you're still on traditional cable, you're using MemSQL every time you click a button on that platform. You're streaming that information to help Comcast and help Hulu give you more proactive decisions on what you should be viewing. And 12 of the Fortune 50, as well as tech leaders from Akamai to Uber. So I'll give an example of Uber as well. So all of that surge pricing infrastructure that happens within the app, it tells you where cars are and how much it's going to cost for you to take your next ride. It's powered by MemSQL. And MemSQL is giving that live data to those applications to facilitate your interaction as a user. And what we'll talk about today is really how we do that from a dashboarding perspective as well. So a little bit more specifically around the healthcare space. So we have a few different customers here. Actually, I'll start with one that's not healthcare, which is Kellogg's. So all the supply chain dashboards at Kellogg's are built on MemSQL on the back end. And what that really means is that we're able to help them ingest their data very fast and give it to a highly concurrent number of users at 80x the speed that they're seeing with their traditional database technology. Intermountain Healthcare, a small healthcare system in Utah, has 1,500 dashboards company-wide powered by MemSQL. And of course, for an organization as big as Cigna, that may not seem a lot, but for small healthcare systems, that is a very large portion of their dashboarding technology that's powered by our database. And then Medaxian. So Medaxian does EHR specifically for anesthesiology practices. And so anything that happens in Medaxian's infrastructure, whether it's anesthesiologists putting in data within their mobile apps or on their computers, bedside, all of those operations, it's 30 seconds or less is their SLA for an event happening. That could be something happening to an individual or a health record being input about an individual to dashboard. So from event to dashboard, it has to be less than 30 seconds, and MemSQL is helping facilitate that as well. So we've talked about a few use cases, but I do want to talk a little bit about operational analytics in healthcare just in general. So I've experienced both on the payer side, on the provider side, as well as working with a lot of pharmaceuticals in the BI and dashboarding space. And so these are a few things that I was sort of thinking of, I thought would be relevant to sort of carry on this discussion here. So one of the main areas that MemSQL really is focusing on is helping our customers identify provider abuse, such as unnecessary compound medications, using generics versus using brand names, things like that. And that really requires bringing in claims data, bringing in pharmaceutical data all in one place to help analyze that. So that's one area that we're pretty passionate about, especially with a lot of that publicly available data that we see today. The next is accelerating drug discovery. So as you know, the whole drug discovery process, especially in today's day and age with COVID-19, really iterates very rapidly, and organizations, specifically in the pharma space, are trying to iterate very fast and fail fast to be able to get ultimately get the right drugs to market. And that a lot of that happens through dashboards. That happens through clinical research dashboards that show the success of certain trials in certain phases. And one of the key things from a dashboarding perspective there is drill down. So how can I quickly drill down on certain graphs and figure out which trials are doing better than others and which drugs I can take to market fastest? So that's another area that we're helping in. Improving patient health by harnessing real-time data and embedded AI is one area I'm very passionate about. So here at MemSQL, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, through our ability to ingest real-time data and serve it up and run machine learning models and execute downstream decisioning, we are helping organizations improve patient health with our ability to make decisions in real time. So just a quick note here, I'm very happy to announce that a few months ago we did partner with Cigna and Express Scripts to make our technology, MemSQL, available today across the entire organization. So you are all more than welcome to try MemSQL in a non-prod capacity and test it for your use cases. Please feel free to reach out to me, even to the Looker team. I'm sure they can direct you to me. There are a number of different use cases that we're helping out with today at Cigna, and we're happy to help with more. So let's now dive in a little bit more about the MemSQL technology. So at our core, MemSQL is a scalable relational database, both built for transactions as well as for analytics. So typically, you'll see in the database market that databases tend to be a bit niche. So you have databases specific for transactions or specific for analytical workloads or even specific for certain data types. So JSON data or relational data or time series data, things like that. But MemSQL truly is a general purpose database to help you with all of your data. Now, the challenges that we see in our customer base, specifically around this dashboarding, dashboards with our partnerships with Looker and others, we're finding that a lot of dashboards typically are slow either because they're based on legacy databases that are never built for fast boards or fast dashboards, as we call them here at MemSQL, or they're built on top of new databases that are purpose-built specifically for certain types of dashboards, or they just have new data sources that are too fast for traditional dashboarding technologies. And that's where newer age dashboarding technologies like Looker come into play. Now, here at MemSQL, we solve that problem in a few different ways. So we have a database that is purpose-built for dashboard acceleration to help you optimize your dashboard based on a data infrastructure that is built for various different analytical queries that may be coming in from end users. We are a converged data platform, so that means we can accept data of any shape, any size, with a singular table type. So often in the database market, you see in-memory row stores or disk-based column stores. Well, here at MemSQL, we have a singular table type that embeds all of the features of sort of the best of both worlds to give you the fastest database for dashboard acceleration. And we are built for fast. So what I'll talk about here in a second is our ability to ingest data very quickly and give it to your end consumers for highly concurrent user access. Let's talk about how we do it now. So for starters, within MemSQL, we have our ability to do very fast ingest and change data capture. So ingest could be from more new data sources like Kafka, like Kinesis, like Pulsar, or even more legacy data sources like your old databases like SQL Server and Teradata. What we also give you the ability to do is bring in data batch from places like Google Cloud Storage. And this data can truly be of any type. So the stored data types that we support within MemSQL could be relational, could be geospatial, even full text search or JSON data. We can bring into MemSQL, present in a relational format, and then serve up to dashboarding platforms like Looker for lightning fast access to your data. Now, speaking of those dashboarding and those analytical applications, at the top of the screen here, you'll see that we can serve up through native connectivity from MemSQL to dashboarding technologies, machine learning technologies like Google AI, and help you drive your real-time decisions, whether it's IoT or it's dynamic experiences, whatever it may be that you're trying to do with your data. And we run anywhere. So on-prem, we have a managed database as a service. You can self-host MemSQL in a cloud of your choice, and it can be containerized as well. And so this is a very holistic picture of what MemSQL offers, and I'll tell you a little bit about what some of our customers are doing. So, in the context specifically of streaming data, we have a customer, True Digital in Thailand, who's a telecom provider, who's actually at the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak decided that they wanted to use all of the mobile data that they have for all of their consumers across the entire country to do contact tracing. So this means 300,000 readings per second coming into MemSQL. MemSQL doing analysis of all of that data through geospatial patterns to find out who was close to one another in the last n number of minutes or hours or even days to contact their customer base and help them understand whether they were exposed to COVID-19 or not. This is truly revolutionary for them, and they're really able to spin this up within 3 weeks, which is pretty amazing. I thought that they're able to bring all of this real-time data, but also leverage historical data that they have through predictive models, machine learning, and AI, and then serve that up to dashboards. These are, as Ethel mentioned, these are embedded dashboards. These are dashboards on analyst computers. These are dashboards on mobile apps. And they're really able to surface this data up to many different people at one time, and also send alerts proactively through dashboards as well as through MemSQL to the end users that may have been impacted by the outbreak. So it was a very cool customer case study that we had recently got to work on. So in closing, I'd like to also share a little bit about our Looker and MemSQL integration as well. Looker are great partners for us. I love using Looker, and really it really comes down to the fact that Looker leverages an in-database architecture. So what that means is that Looker loves working with extremely performant databases and really thrives with extremely performant databases. And that's truly what MemSQL is. So MemSQL can, as I mentioned earlier, ingest data in real time. And that data that you're going to see in Looker is going to be as real time as the data is in MemSQL. You can set up Looker to query MemSQL once a second. And you can imagine having thousands of Looker users hitting one MemSQL database cluster every second with updating data and real-time ingest of data from everywhere. And really those dashboards are extremely performant because MemSQL is handling all the data and Looker is handling all the users. It's pretty amazing. And so all that data within MemSQL can be available to all of the users in a very user-friendly fashion. So data can be explored in real time. So for example, if I have real-time data coming into MemSQL, and I have a Looker dashboard user that's iterating around through his data and changing different parameters. All that's going to be updating in real time based on what's in MemSQL, and that really where MemSQL becomes your single source of truth. And lastly, here we have a number of geospatial functions and JSON functions that Looker can directly translate into SQL and push down the SQL into our MemSQL platform. So the platforms end up working very seamlessly together. So finally, I'd like to share with you that myself and the team that I work with here at MemSQL, in conjunction with the Looker partnerships team, have launched a Looker and MemSQL demo hub. And so what this basically is a number of different demos where you can play around with Looker. And it's all MemSQL databases on the back end. So you'll be able to interact with the Looker dashboard, see how fast Looker is, see how easy it is to use Looker, while also seeing the responsiveness of the MemSQL databases on the back end behind those. So you can either reach out to Ethel, reach out to myself, and we're happy to get you access to that to just play around with the environment and POC both technologies. So with that, I will hand it off for the Looker roadmap to Jamie. But thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thanks so much, everybody, for taking the time to do. Thanks so much, Sarang, and the MemSQL team as well. I'm Jamie Davidson. I run the product team at Looker. Really excited to give you a look at where we're going as well at Looker. So to start, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview. This this is how we think about products too. And you saw something similar that Ethel presented against. Looker, we certainly are an enterprise BI tool, but we really think of ourselves as a data platform first and foremost. Enterprise BI is the killer application on top of that platform too, but we think about a wide range of use cases that we actually satisfy. So from simple embedding in internal tools, embedding into SaaS products, embedding dashboards into external facing tools. We've got lots of customers now using us to present to their customers, monetize data sets, present data to partners as well, and increasingly we're seeing lots and lots of customers now building out custom workflows and custom applications to using the Looker platform, to using our APIs first, and leaving our UI behind to try and get that governed data. And I want to just first really quickly explain a couple of key architectural decisions we made too that makes it possible for us to take unique advantage of technologies like the MemSQL platform. First and foremost, we have an in-database architecture. It gives you direct access to real-time data too, and lets you take advantage of the advances that all of these incredible technologies are driving, and so it lets you have direct, real access to. On top of that in-database architecture, we've got a semantic model, and that semantic model is where an analyst can come and take their expertise effectively and codify it to democratize access to data. So they take their understanding of data relationships and business logic, encode it in a single place, and then democratize access. And then finally, Looker is a cloud native application we're an API first. In fact, we've got a philosophy of 110% API coverage. So everything you can do in our BI tool and more, we want to expose via APIs. And this gives you a couple of key benefits. This gives you, because this semantic model is integrated with version control, we can give you organizational governance and a modern software development lifecycle too, to allow for adapting to changes to data, changes to business process, changes to business logic. It's tied to the database as well. That semantic model also enables you to democratize access to data. So no longer is it a queue of folks asking questions of a data team. Instead, a data team can codify their expertise and then empower the broad organization to drive benefit. We are a cloud native application. Every URL is, of course, referenceable. You always have repeatable analysis. You always have a single source of truth, and present inside Looker. And then finally, because of that in database architecture, we uniquely enable customers to both see high-level trends and KPIs, but also to drill to very granular detail too in systems like MemSQL. So just to reiterate, we've got a wide variety of use cases we're optimizing for. We've got a couple of additional benefits because of the architecture, and I'm going to sort of go through these benefits too, and it really underscores where we're investing, and I'll sort of give you a lens and sort of focus there as well. So, first, we can be fast on any size of data too. We leverage modern databases to be able to derive that benefit. We've democratized access by sort of codifying the business metrics inside a semantic model. That model is integrated with Git and version control too, that allows you to do change management and process management. And then finally, we want to help our customers create value from their data. It's not sufficient to have it present inside, a BI application. We want to integrate it into every workflow. We want to make it possible to create custom bespoke experiences to drive business value. So I'm going to give you a really quick high-level overview too, and I'm going to talk in more detail about a bunch of these projects. But at a high level, we sort of think of three broad pillars of investment. On the far left, we've got data experiences. This is what an end user will see. This is our core BI use cases and our core differentiation too in the platform. So things like reporting and self-serve analytics, but also things like NLP interfaces on top of the semantic model, or our platform integrations too to bring Looker into productivity tools. In the middle, we've got our application platform. This is the surface area. We literally build our own data experiences on. We build our BI application on top of our own APIs that we expose to our end customers. This platform, we focus on a couple of different areas. We want to increase the amount of flexibility in our embedded product, make it feel like the products that it's being embedded in. We want to give you higher level components to be able to construct completely bespoke experiences. So JavaScript SDKs that are tied to our APIs so that you can take our visualizations, take our filters, and go from there. On the far right, we've got our foundation, and I'll go into detail about all of these too. In our foundation, we think about things like our core development platform. So that's the software development lifecycle for LookML. It's our IDE. It's the dev staging prod workflows that we can enable. We also think about things like performance and query execution. Because we have a in-database architecture, we've got a unique opportunity to do performance optimization effectively in a layered approach too. We want to take advantage of all of the functionality inside the underlying database, as well as enable the Looker application to be as performant as possible with scalable caches, as well as having the front-end experience be as performant as possible too inside the browser. And that's just a quick overview. I'll dive into more detail in just a moment. To do a quick look, we were acquired by GCP. I think we signed the agreement to be acquired about 1.5 years ago. The transaction closed at the beginning of this year, and I wanted to take a quick look at what that means for Looker. I guess first and foremost, we are absolutely continually supportive of a multi-cloud, data infrastructure agnostic approach. We will always support. We believe that the modern enterprise has a heterogeneous data environment. They've got. We want our customers to pick the right tool for the right specific use case too. We will continue to have a great partnership and support of MemSQL and a wide variety of other databases as well. We support over 60 different SQL-based databases, and we'll continue to do so. We will make the GCP offering, continue to invest in that integration too. And I'd say at a high level, we are very deeply integrated. We want to take advantage of all cloud data warehouses. We've been partners with GCP for 4 years, even before our acquisition was closed. And we had the benefit of a long regulatory review process as well. So we got to do a lot of planning ahead of time before we actually closed the transaction too. So we're able to hit the ground running. And so we've already released. I think the first integration we released was an integration with Google Sheets. So you can take governed Looker data and send it into Sheets too to be able to do a little bit more ad hoc, slice and dicing of that data. We've released an integration with BigQuery to enable you to use OAuth, so having user-level authentication to leverage your BigQuery permissions. We'll continue to invest more in a tighter integration with BigQuery too, and we would have done this even if we were independent. We're supporting BigQuery's BI engine. We're going to have an instant exploration experience inside BigQuery too, and then on top of our semantic model, we are going to be exposing a natural language interface, which we're really excited about. Going forward in 2021. We're really excited. The Google Sheets integration was just the start. We firmly believe that not every knowledge worker inside an enterprise that can benefit from data is going to come into a BI tool every day. We want to take that data and put it wherever they're working, which includes productivity suites. So, integrating with Google Slides or Docs, where you can have a live view and visualization of governed data, makes a ton of sense and is very much aligned with what we want to do. We want to add that. To drive increased value from your data. We also are excited about integrating more deeply with the lower layers of the stack too for data infrastructure. So tying and passing metadata back and forth from ETL process. So for example, if you've batch updated some data. You can have Looker basically regenerate aggregates or reprime the cache effectively via APIs or webhooks. We also, just one quick area too, and you'll see this a little bit more in the presentation. We're really excited about Google's expertise in AI and ML and how we can leverage that expertise inside the BI product too, and sort of enable folks to have, analysts to have more superpowers. So, we've got lots of, advanced functionality already. For example, we've got a feature called analytical alerts, where you can use data inside your instance too, and have conditional alerts to trigger workflows. So if this KPI changes significantly, send me an email so that I know, and then can go and diagnose what's happening. We want to make that even smarter so that you can just say, these are the KPIs that matter to me, and the system can basically go and say, hey, here's an anomalous, event. This is out of the norm, and in fact, maybe even here are some of the core drivers up to. So we're excited about investing, very, very early still for us too, and there's a broad sort of set of features, functionality that we're excited about too. So I'm going to go into some detail now about those sort of core pillars too. So just to reiterate for everybody, we're going to talk about experiences, so that end user experience on top of the data. I'll talk a little bit about the platform, and then finally I'll talk about that sort of core foundation piece too. So in data experiences, there are a bunch of different areas here. This is your classic reporting and self-serve analytics. This is really what people think of when they think of BI. Over the course of the last 2 years, we've actually completely rebuilt our dashboards from scratch with a bunch of different goals in mind. We wanted to make them more performant. We wanted to make them more intuitive. We wanted to have a modern stack so that we can iterate on it quickly too. We've also enabled, because of our unique architecture, some pretty fundamentally new behaviors on top of that sort of core reporting use case. So we now have the ability to cross filter. So using a single chart, so in this case, the pie chart in the dashboard here, using that as effectively a filter for the rest of the data. And because Looker has an in-database architecture where we can take advantage of the scale that MemSQL provides, we can let you cross filter not just on extracts but on very large granular data sets too. We're continuing to improve how customizable the dashboard is. So we want to give you broad control over what's possible, how to present data to your end user, including things like building out effectively widgets, so specific extension points inside dashboards to be able to enable advanced functionality as well. We're very invested in creating value from data across the board, and so this is both expanding internationally. So we've got a big effort to localize the product, and it's now localized in 21 languages for the core reporting and self-serve analytic use cases. We will continue to finalize that localization effort to across the full application UI. We're also investing heavily in accessibility to make sure that Looker is able to sort of showcase insight on data and allow for folks to drive action to regardless of need. Just as we completely rebuilt our dashboard stack basically over the last year and a half, we're actually now taking a look at our core self-serve analysis and exploration. And you can think of the Explore page very literally as the manifestation of the model. It's the interactive UI that is on top of a model, which is absolutely core to Looker. We took a view of rebuilding this with a bunch of the same goals as we rebuilt our dashboard. We want to add, make it a more modern stack. We want it to be more performant. We want to increase the amount of, or sort of ease of interactivity to make it less and less sophisticated, so that business users can actually derive more value from data. That includes things like easier on the fly calculation, simplifying the process for modeling. So for example, if you've got a numeric field, maybe it's a price or something, you don't have to go into LookML to add things like a sum or a average or the 25th percentile, and instead you can basically do it in the UI very simply on the front end. We also are going to be investing in visualizations heavily and continuing to support more and more advanced functionality. I've talked about it a couple times now already. The BI tool is not the only place where people are going to consume data, and it's increasingly becoming expected to have data present everywhere a knowledge worker is working. We want to make it really easy to take direct action from within the interface. And so we're building on top of some functionality that we've got that's called the Action Hub, where we are bringing more behaviors into the UI and simplifying the process too. Here's an example marketing use case on top of Google Ads data. We've released a suite of solutions of basically pre-built, pre-packaged. We call them Looker blocks. They're basically an accelerator pack on top of common data sets too. And we want to tie that to the end action, to enabling our customers to ultimately derive that end value. If they find you find a campaign that's overperforming, give it more budget. If you find a campaign that's underperforming, maybe you can pause it. I talked a little bit about how we've integrated with Google Sheets. We want to go even further. We want to have a bi-directional sync so that you can pull data from Looker within Google Sheets, as well as send data to Google Sheets from within Looker. We've got a Slack integration that is really we've got hundreds of customers now using it too, where it enables easy access to data where people are working today, and they're increasingly working in these communication-based tools too, especially as people are remote, with COVID-19. We will be exposing a novel interface to Looker as well, where we want to enable people to ask questions of their Looker model. You can think of your Looker model as effectively an analyst curated set of vocabulary for your data too, and natural language is just one potential interface on top of it too, but a very reasonable one to have inside a communication platform. We're going to be releasing a mobile app, I believe in about a month or two, which is really exciting. We've always been a mobile responsive website too, to enable access on the go. This will be very specifically tailored and targeted towards consumption in that mobile use case. So that's all of the data experiences. I'm going to switch gears now and talk a little bit more about that layer below, the sort of the application platform piece too, on top of which the experiences can be built, and we've got how we've got customers really creating tailored experiences, tailored UI to be able to embed into their own products too, and ultimately help their customers oftentimes create value from their data. So here, we want to first, help accelerate our customers' value. So, giving you building blocks on top of which you can go extend and create value. We also want to make it incredibly powerful to embed, but also make it fit and feel like the product that's being embedded into the dashboard. So along the lines of accelerating value, we've got a marketplace that showcases a bunch of pre-built content to accelerate our customers' value. So for common data sets, for common analytical patterns, for common custom visualizations and the like too, and increasingly it's going to be common tailored experiences. It's possible to basically discover, install, lifecycle manage all from a single interface too. So if you've got Google Ads data, I gave as an example, if you've got Google Ads data, you can install a pre-built Looker model with content tied to ultimately actions. And just as an example, we released this actually in August recently. On embedding, we sort of think of this as basically a spectrum. In the application, we want to increase the amount of customization that's possible, and we've been investing heavily inside that new dashboard experience to make it possible to customize the dashboard and push insight into the hands of business users. We recognize, though, that not every use case is going to be something that we've got a toggle for inside the UI. So because of our API-first mentality, it's very easy for customers to create completely bespoke experiences, on top of our APIs, still using governed data. And we see customers creating very interesting, really unique operational applications too, where that governed data is just a means to inform and create insight, but not the focus of the application. And we want to actually make it sort of increase what's possible and make it so that you don't have to build quite as much. So we want to have higher level objects, so higher level SDKs and the like, so that you don't have to connect directly to our APIs and instead have pre-built, prepackaged interfaces too. So you don't have to recreate visualizations or filters or something that's common inside the BI context. We can take very literally that new dashboard code base, package it up into high-level JavaScript components to make it really easy for our customers to create, extensible value. Just as an example, we've increased the amount of theming that's possible too, so you can have a dark mode, for example, and make it look and feel like the application that the dashboard's going to be sitting in. We've got these high-level JavaScript components that I've mentioned too. We very literally took that new dashboard code base and rolled them into high-level components. We're creating a new API Explorer and making it really easy for our customers to interface with APIs, to build new content to, and basically experiment on top of the Looker platform. In terms of extending the platform, we've got a really exciting new feature we're calling the extension framework. And it's basically, it enables our customers and partners to develop completely custom JavaScript front ends too, are authenticated with Looker's APIs too, so you can take advantage of governed data access and then the permissions and the like inside the Looker instance too. And we've seen customers do pretty amazing things where for specific types of analysis, the pivot table metaphor of Looker's Explore page may not be the right one. So we had a customer build out a cohort tool. So to look at sets of users too in a constrained way and understand how the customer base is performing. I think this is specifically for a marketing use case. Another one we've seen customers develop as well is a notebook extension too. This is something that we'll be exploring actually in 2021, building this natively, probably via our marketplace, so that customers can actually install it too, where you can have a data science notebook experience. So an R Jupyter notebook that's hosted in another environment, pre-authenticated to the Looker API with an SDK already instantiated too, so you can do things beyond the common self-serve analysis that's inside Looker today. So that's the platform. This is sort of the surface area that is built on top of, and the ability to package and deliver content. I'm going to switch gears now and talk a little bit more about sort of that lower level, that foundation. As a part of the foundation, we think of things like LookML, the language itself and the abstractions that is represented inside the semantic model. We think of the software development lifecycle and the tooling that we've enabled for data people to do sort of modern software development. We think about the performance administration of instances and transformation as a result to drive that performance, and then more generally to the hosting and security as well. Looker, a large part of the value of Looker is that we brought some of the best practices from modern software development to data development too, and we want to extend even what's possible today. So today we've got a development environment that can be per user and can be shared across users. We want to integrate content, transformation, and ultimately even those extensions I was talking about in the extension framework, that custom UI tied to the content into that sort of common development environment, and then also introduce a staging process to enable customers to be able to do a QA process as well. Performance is core. I think of our value is really helping our customers create, find insight and create value from their data. Performance ends up being a form of friction effectively on asking questions of the data. If it's too slow, people will ask fewer questions and therefore derive less value. We've got a couple of really exciting features that we've been releasing. So aggregate awareness is something we actually released earlier this year too, and we're continuing to improve on and invest on. This is a really powerful concept. It's basically a query optimization. If you're familiar with the database, we imagine you've got a very large, every transaction table. So like every row is, a purchase or something like that. And then imagine you've got an aggregate table that is a summary of that transactional table. That's maybe it's like the date and then, count of transactions and sum of revenue or something. Looker can enable you to basically to dynamically optimize your query. So depending on what's inside the query, if you're looking for very low-level granular pieces of information, say the transaction ID, will go to the raw large table too and give you full granularity of data. If you're looking for date and sum of revenue to show high-level trends. Looker will do the performance optimization and go to the much smaller, much more performant, much less costly table, and still have guaranteed basically data accuracy too, because we understand the relational algebra that's used to generate those aggregate tables. Along those lines, we're investing heavily in how we generate transformations in data warehouse too. So using the same LookML logic that you've already encoded inside your data model, we can enable you to create those aggregate tables, to create that daily roll-up table too. And we want to do it too in a way where you don't have to recreate or recompute those aggregates every time at query time too. And so instead, you can materialize it in the data warehouse. You can incrementally update it based on usage. So if you have an hourly batch update to your transactional table, we won't drop the table and recompute it all. We'll instead just calculate the delta on the latest hours of data. We're also, investing heavily in the Looker application layer too. So, we support and have now a new in-memory scalable distributed cache. So for data that is already fresh and doesn't require a round trip to the database, we can actually drive, substantially better performance and much higher concurrency because of that sort of simplification too. And it's a new service that we're in the process of rolling out, GA, that'll let you scale that in-memory cache to independent of the Looker server as well. We've been investing heavily in our system activity or sort of the analytics on your analytics usage too. We want to use your behavior, the user behavior on Looker to help inform your administration of your instance too, to help you drive better performance and optimize queries, content, and users as well. That data model that you've already encoded inside LookML is incredibly valuable, but we've seen more and more customers want to leverage that the definitions of metrics and the sort of codification of your business logic in other contexts too. So we've got a new feature, a relatively new feature that basically allowed us to expose materialized transformation tables, so those aggregate tables I've been talking about, to other systems. So we've seen lots of customers use them in machine learning workflows where they do the feature generation and definition inside LookML, materialize those tables inside data warehouse too, and then use them in a separate machine learning process to build models and do predictions and the like too. We're also in the process of building integrations with other BI tools. We think that Looker's BI tool is great and differentiated because of leveraging the data model. We recognize that every use case is unique. We want to give customers the ability to choose the right tool for the right problem. We want to help create value, and we think that Looker's semantic model is a way to create sort of trusted access of data too, and we want to let you leverage it in any context. So closing it up. Just a quick note on sort of hosting, compliance, and security. This is a huge focus for us, and honestly, if anything, an increased focus given the recent acquisition. We've already got our SOC 2 Type 2. We've already got our HIPAA. We've got our ISO 27K. We've got a PCI offering as well. We're actively investing in ISO 2717 and 2718. We're actively investing in high trust as well as sort of the certification as a part of HIPAA, it's a relatively new certification too. We will continue to invest in security. It's a large focus for us and a large part of the engineering team. Similarly, we firmly believe in the customer's ability to choose both the database that's right for the specific use case, as well as the hosting environment too. So we currently support GCP, AWS for Looker to host it too. We allow our customers to host on-prem. We make it easy, and we're going to continue to support that as well. We're actually actively working on supporting hosting inside Azure as well too. So if you want to sit your BI instance next to the Azure SQL data warehouse, of course we want to enable it for our customers too. And so that is the presentation. I think I probably went too fast too. I'm sorry. I think we may have a little bit more time for questions, or let's see. Yeah, so if you have any feedback for me, please feel free to send me an email, Davidson@Google. I would love direct feedback too. I think I'm not sure if Ethel, are you going to drive questions or?
It's Shayna. I realized I've never asked you a product roadmap question, so I have one.
Please.
What do you think, like for you personally, in the way that you use Looker in your day-to-day to get your job done, what feature do you think is going to make the biggest change in your day-to-day to help you?
That's a good question. So I think the thing I'm most excited about is the new dashboards, because candidly, I used to be an analyst once upon a time, but I really shouldn't be spending any of my time. Actually, I don't know the data model anymore. I don't even know like the logic we're using to define key metrics and stuff too. So I mostly just consume dashboards that other people create. But our new dashboard with the cross-filtering ability basically makes it really, really easy and intuitive for. I'm effectively now just a business user. I don't have any deeper technical understanding, unfortunately, too. It makes it really easy for even me to ask basically subsequent questions of the data too. So using the visualizations present inside that dashboard to use them as a filter, so allowing for interactivity. I think a large part of the value Looker creates is helping people ask incremental questions. So you see a trend, you want to understand what's driving it. You see, you want to understand the relationship between data. You want to be able to sort of understand the correlation between things, and like that is now going to be super easy to do within Looker, and to do it at scale that's not really possible inside other tools. So enabling you to leverage the cloud native data warehouse too, like MemSQL.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. I see we have a couple of Q&A questions for some of our other speakers. So, Harry, if you are still on the line, we have a question for you that I'm going to push to the screen right now.
Sure.
It says, Harry, what do you believe to be the biggest challenge in organizing a transformation strategy in an org of our size? Also, is there anything you would do different in terms of maintaining a legacy data warehouse?
So for an organization strategy on the scale of Cigna, often the issues are less technical and more political. And so the biggest challenges are often aligning the various power centers in the organization and budget centers into a broader approach and a broader strategy. The technology can often follow behind quickly, but getting the business leadership who's going to fund these kind of projects aligned and on the same page takes the right skill and takes time. In terms of maintaining a legacy data warehouse, these things are often plugged in so integrally to providing information to the organization. Sometimes they fund they feed the financial systems, they feed data to business partners, they feed analytics out to the organization. You can't unwind them overnight, and so you've got to keep it up. As usage declines over time, you want to think about how you scale down operating costs. And begin to automate as much as you can so you can divert your resources elsewhere. But I would say for a large company the size of Cigna, you'll have your legacy environments for 5 to 10 years easily as you move things off the platform, unless you really want to invest in an accelerated approach in order to shut that legacy piece down, because there is a high cost of operation.
That is all the questions that we had. So if no one else has any questions, thoughts, concerns, we can wrap up early and give you all a little bit of time back in your day. But thank you all so much for joining, and I will just hand it off to Ethel for a last sign off.
Thank you so much, Shayna and team, and thank you all for your time today. I think as far as a follow-up, you probably saw on your screen, I'll put it up again in case you hadn't seen it, my contact information, EthelAnderson@google.com. If you have any questions or would like to follow up with any deeper demo or use case scenarios that you feel would be a good fit for purpose for either MemSQL or Looker, feel free to channel those to me. I would be happy to coordinate with the team. And then moving forward, if you have any other questions as things evolve with Cigna and Express Scripts and sort of the convergence between the two, by all means, feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to help. So thank you all for your time today. We'll be following up for those of you that attended We'll be following up with some material, and for those that were not able to come, hopefully they'll be able to see the recording soon as a follow-up. Thank you all very much.